Believe it or not, I have health problems too.
Yeah.
This is the picture we took when we had the dinner,
Yeah.
and this is the World War II guys.
Yeah.
So that's for you.
That's all of us?
That's what went to.
That's all over
That's
there,
the people that
that-
went to that dinner at that
Yeah.
time.
Yeah.
And you're the last one to be interviewed on that group.
Well, Rich yesterday said there was two. You must have got the other one, huh?
We're also going to try to interview Joe Blaschka, but he's not really a member of the Legion,
Yeah.
and he isn't on the picture. So of those, you're the last one.
Yeah.
And basically, the reason we do this is so that we have a historical record of what the people on the island, the veterans on the islands, all did. And each one did a part. I was in the service. We all did a part in the service, and each one is important. You can't have just infantry without having somebody bring the food and the ammo. So we just would like to know. Basically, I have some questions here, and basically, the big question is, how did you join the service? Did they make you join, or did you volunteer, or
Well,
how did you get into it?
I was drafted, but I tried to join. Buddy and I went down to join the Navy, and they took him, but they wouldn't take me because they said my teeth didn't fit right. So he went ahead and went in. And then I went and tried to join the Air Force, and they weren't accepting any in the Air Force. I could join the Army, but I couldn't join the Air Force. Well, I was working in the shipyard at that time, and I had a deferment if I wanted it anyway, so I just stayed there, and then they drafted me. And after a few tests and stuff, they put me in the Air Force. So that's the way I ended up in the Air Force. But that's where I wanted to go.
And then, so what did you do while you were in the service?
Well, I was a propeller mechanic. After I'd been in for a short period of time, they sent me to technical school down in Glendale, California. And then after that, they assigned me to a unit. And after a few months, they sent me overseas. So I went over to North Africa to start with. We landed at Casablanca. And they had a shipload of trucks and stuff that they wanted to get across Africa, so they made us all truck drivers, and they assigned me to drive a truck. And they assigned a young fellow with me that didn't have any driver's experience, so I let him drive for about an hour, and then after that, well, I drove all the rest of the way by myself. We had a truck pulling a trailer. The trailer had an aircraft engine in it. In the truck I had some tank tracks and 50 caliber ammunition in it. So we drove across North Africa.
How long did that take?
Oh, it took us about 5 days.
Oh.
And yeah, it was quite an experience because a lot of the bridges were out, and of course was in enemy territory. Most of it had been taken over. The fighting was just winding up in North Africa when I got over there.
How did you get fuel?
How was that?
How did you get gasoline or fuel for the truck?
Well, they had fuel trucks that come along. So fuel out of 5-gallon cans. And then we carried a couple extra 5-gallon cans with us. But some of those mountains was kind of slow going. And some of the natives would wait at the mountains for you. When you get going real slow, they'd hop in the back of your truck to see what they could steal while you was driving, because you was driving so slow that they could get in.
Mm-hmm.
But I didn't have anything edible in there, so that was just one of the things. But, well, the natives was having a bad time. That was during the war, and they was having a hard time to eat. I couldn't blame them too much, but then we had to look after ourselves too.
Mm-hmm.
So we went from Casablanca and ended up over at Tunis, and there was an airport just east of Tunis there that we opened up. The hangars and stuff, most of the roof was off because we'd been bombing the place, and of course a few airplanes around, parts of them. But anyway, we hired some native people, put the roof on the hangars, and then we set up shop there. And I was there for several months. We lived in a Italian barracks, but it was a barracks that didn't have any windows in it. I mean, there's no glass in the windows. We slept on the floor. Finally managed to build a little bed out of some crates and stuff so I could get up off the floor for a little bit. But when we moved from Africa over to Italy there, well, I lived in a tent, and we set up shop in a supply depot, and I was on detached service to a headquarters squadron for my rations and stuff. But my outfit was at the airport there several miles away, but we to have a nice building for our shop while we was in a supply depot. So we lived in a tent there. But overall, I spent 30 months overseas.
Most of it in
course,
Italy?
we didn't get to come home then on furloughs or anything.
Most of the 30 months, were they in Italy?
They what?
Were they in Italy mostly?
Were they
The
what?
time you spent in Europe was mostly in Italy?
Was it what?
Mostly in Italy? Italy?
Utility?
No, Italy.
Italy, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I spent more time in Italy than I did North Africa. But we had a nice shop there. And then after the war ended, they turned our shop into a packing and crating outfit, so we was packing up all the equipment that the services had there. And we had Italian civilians, and I had about 40 German PWs working there, and an Italian PW. Of course, they all volunteered for the job. But I got to know the guys pretty well, living in a tent with them for so long. But most of them are gone now. That I was in the tent with, I just know one fellow left. He lives down in Texas. I'm more fortunate, I guess. I just lived a little longer than they did.
Yeah. Were there any special, memorable events that happened while you were there? You know, something you say, wow, you know,
Yeah,
something.
well, I know there in Italy, I was stationed near Bari, and they come over and they bombed the ships there. And I was up in the shop, and I was heading out for lunch. I was out in the doorway of the building when the bomb struck, and it knocked me over and blew the windows out and stuff. But I went down afterward, went and had chow, and then after chow we would wash our mess kits outside. And when I was washing the mess kits, the oil was coming down from the explosions onto our mess kits and stuff while we were washing them. So evidently the ships had quite a bit of oil in them. Anyway, we just had to do the best we could, I guess.
Now, who did the bombing?
Well, it was the Germans.
The Germans.
But they were still fighting Germans up in northern Italy while we was there. Right in Barry, that's about halfway up the boot there. But while I was in Italy, one of my buddies and I, we hitchhiked down into the southern boot to visit one of his cousins that was in the service. And then after that, we hitchhiked up north to where we had another friend up there. And my cousin was stationed over there too, although it's supposed to be restricted on not knowing where you were when you was over there, but I found out where he was anyway. But he was a bombardier or something on one of the aircraft, but I found out where he was stationed. So went to visit him.
When you hitchhiked, did you on military vehicles or?
Yeah, mostly English or Australian or something that picked us up. There was more English than there was American, but military vehicles would pick you up.
You had your uniform on naturally?
Oh yeah, we had our uniform on. But while I was there, I wanted to see a little stuff.
So did you have some time off then? They gave you some time off?
Yeah. Well, when we went over to North Africa, we worked 10 days and then they got 1 day off. When we got over to Italy, we worked 6 days and got 1 day off. Mm. But outside of doing my regular mechanical duties, we had to do other duties, pull guard duty. Even had to pull KP a couple times, even though I was a sergeant. But there in Italy, we all pitched in a little money and hired some Italians to do our KP for us.
That's good.
But in North Africa, we couldn't do that. In North Africa, they had guards outside the base, but they were mostly Arabs. And they pitched their tents outside the base there, and we hear them singing at night. Of course, couldn't understand what they was singing, but they was Arabic. And of course, that part of North Africa was mostly French. So when you go to town, you couldn't understand too much. Now I go into Tunis to see a movie there. They had a theater there. It had a roof that was retractable because during the summer it got pretty hot because we was right on the edge of the desert there. Mm. So I thought that was kind of neat having a roof over the theater that they could open up so it'd cool off. Hmm.
And this was before you met Clara?
Yeah, I met Clara after I got out. Mm-hmm. I was going to a girl before I went in the service. We talked about getting married and decided not to. And after I was gone for a couple of years, she married somebody else. But she joined the WWII when I went in the service. But after a couple of years, she married somebody else. So when I got out, I didn't have any girls, didn't have any job, didn't have any home to live in. So I went down to Idaho, where my folks was, and I didn't have a job. I'd saved a little money while I was in the service, and my dad talked me into buying a lot and building a house, so I started building a house. and then they started up the Idaho Air National Guard, and they couldn't find any propeller mechanics, so they just talked me into joining them for propeller mechanic. So I went to work for them before I had my house finished. So I was with the Air National Guard for about 3.5 years. And then during the Berlin airlift, McCord up here was doing a lot of maintenance work on the aircraft, so they come down there and they recruited me to come up here. I was a propeller mechanic, and we were scheduled to get jets in, so I was afraid I was going to be out of a job anyway. And Claire wanted to move, so I came up here, and stayed out in McCord till I retired in 1980.
Did you work in McCord as a service person or as a civilian?
As a civilian.
As a civilian.
I was started out as a propeller repairman in the shop, and then the Air Force started up what they called a non-destructive inspection, and I started up that shop and was in that for several years before I retired. Non-destructive inspection, X-ray and ultrasonics and eddy current and everything else you can think of. But it's very interesting, developing different methods of inspection and everything, being out kind of a new field. They kind of left it up to us to devise different ways of doing it. So I worked in that.
What prompted you to come to the island?
I bought my lot over here in 1966, and I started building my house in 1989. I retired in 1980, and I had a trailer at that time, so we just traveled around the country for a while before we decided to build over here. So the house in town I sold to my kids when I built this place. So I built this house myself with the help of my grandson and my wife.
So was Claire the supervisor or what?
Well, she painted the siding and stuff. The siding we painted before we put it on the house. We put it down on blocks, and she painted the siding, and my grandson and myself would put it on the house.
That's a good idea.
So that's been 25 years. It's ready for another paint job now.
But 25 years is a long time. Yeah. That's good. That's good.
And they won't let me up on the roof anymore, so my son comes over and inspects the roof for me. They say I shouldn't be on the roof.
Good idea.
Yeah.
They're right.
Well, here, a couple months ago I had a mini stroke, but no permanent damage, I guess. But they don't want me climbing, and I use a cane part of the time. But I've got a bad knees. I had a hip replacement about 12 years ago, but my knees are bothering me. The doctor don't recommend replacing the knee. I don't know whether they figured I'm too old or what. They give me some shots and stuff, but that don't help too much.
A lot of pain. A lot of pain.
Yeah. Yeah, I take things for it, but sometimes I run out and get a little careless and don't take everything, and it makes a difference. But I'm still getting around, but using the cane.
Do you have a picture of you in a uniform?
Yeah, I've got this one.
Oh.